Do you feel like your practice just isn't growing the way you think it should? Do you feel it just doesn't have that momentum? Well, if that's the case, then what I'm going to share with you today is the 3 most common bottlenecks that could be preventing your business from growing. And before I do that, just a little bit about me. Jamey Schrier, CEO of Practice Freedom U, and I've helped hundreds of practice owners not only grow their business, but get them out of the day-to-day, make the money they want, and actually live the life they've always imagined. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So first of all, what do I mean when I talk about bottlenecks? I have a bottle right here, my Deer Park water, and as you can see, just as a visual, the bottle is thicker here, and then it creates the neck of the bottle, which is much thinner, which means that all of the water has to compress in to then come out the spout. So when we refer to bottlenecks, we refer to something that is limiting the growth and the evolution of your business. And ruin the surprise, the bottleneck is often the owner. If not, it is always the owner. So let me share with you 3 ways that you as the owner can create the bottleneck in your business. First of all, it's around decision making. So a lot of times when people build their practices, and I know this is what happened to me, every decision came through me. From the moment I started in that first initial startup phase to as I started hiring people, they still came to me. If there was an issue, a question from a patient, it was a question of insurance, they came to me. So the lack of the ability for my team to make decisions because they all came to me created a bottleneck in decision making, which certainly not only slowed down growth, but of course now I have tons and tons of people coming to me, interrupting me all the time. And it feels like I'm putting out fires by just answering the same question again and again. So that's, holding on to decisions. The other thing with bottlenecks is about delegation. And in this case, I'll refer to delegating as in hiring. You see, the idea is when you hire people, the first thing you want to do is delegate things off of your plate. Well, speaking with so many owners and working with so many practice owners, that's not often the case. They hire someone, yet their schedule doesn't decrease. They hire a clinician, but their number of clients they're seeing a week doesn't really change. They hire a front desk. Yes, the front desk can handle some of the calls and the intakes, but they're still involved with some of the things because they haven't fully delegated. So delegation is a big issue, specifically around hiring. And then the last one that's a bottleneck, and this one's, I'm going to say, the most important. It's avoiding the hard conversations. So I'll give you a quick story that I share with all of my clients. So there's a buffalo and a cow. And imagine that there's a storm coming over the plains, bad storm. And the cow actually begins to kind of move away from the storm. But the buffalo doesn't. The buffalo moves towards the storm. So there's an old Indian lore that explains what happens here. And it goes by saying that the reason the cow moves away from the storm because the cow is trying to avoid the storm. But they say the buffalo actually moves towards the storm because intuitively the buffalo knows the fastest way to get through the storm is through it. So we use this story really often in our company because it's all about leaning into the storms, leaning into the uncomfortable. So some of that uncomfortable might be having a conversation with a staff person that's not living up to your standards, not living up to the agreement that you have. So avoiding the hard conversation creates a bottleneck within the team and the culture. Because as you know, you cannot build and grow a successful company if you have not right fit people, bad eggs on the team. So let's go through those 3 areas and talk about, so what do we do about it? How do we fix it? How do we get through and open up the bottle. All right, so the first one that we talked about is holding on to decision making. So there are things that you do again and again and again in your business. There are ways that you are making decisions. And a lot of times what happens is, A, you haven't clearly put the decision-making tree in place. And B, you haven't given that to somebody so they can make decisions. And I guess there's a C, give them permission to maybe make a mistake. So the first thing is, let's say that you're always making decisions on supplies. People are coming to you, Jamey, what supplies do we need? Well, you know what supplies you need. So write down a list of all the supplies, who you order from, the contact information, the minimum quantity that you want, and how often you order them, right? It's just a checklist of everything. And then go ahead and choose somebody to order the supplies and, give them access, give them the credit card, whatever they need to do it, and allow them to make that decision. Allow them to do that work. Now, the supplies is something simple, but the power still remains that the less decisions, and I'm talking about lower level day-to-day operational decisions, the less decisions that are coming to you, the more time you have, the less interruptions for you to get into flow doing something else, and it allows your team to be more empowered to be a part of this growth process. All right, number 2, we talked about hiring, but hiring in a sense that you want to hire and you want to remove some of the things off of your plate to them. So first of all, many of us hire either way too early or too late. So what do I mean by way too early? We're busy for a week and all of a sudden we say we need to hire someone. But there's not a multi-week or multi-month trend that says we're going to be able to support the number of evals, referrals, and visits on this new person's schedule. Then there's the other side of it where we're so busy, we're overwhelming everyone in our staff. The referrals are supporting the new patients are supporting the number of visits, but we hire way too late. And there's a nice time in the middle. So when I'm working with a client, I'm like, look, first of all, if you have a vision of growing or expansion or something like that, then you know you're moving towards this. And I think we should always be looking for great people to join our team, and it never works out perfect. So even if you have someone that is, let's say, maybe a couple months before you really wanted to hire them, let's say it's July and you wanted to wait till September, you want to consider bringing them on board sooner. Because by the time you bring them on board and train them and get them up to speed, they're going to be ready to roll. And it's hard finding good people. So if you find good people, we're talent scouts. If you find a good person, you want to bring them on. So I like that, 2 to 3 month range as far as making a hire, and then making sure that if you are still treating and you want to reduce your patient care, which I always recommend as you're growing the business, then this new hire should be taking some of your schedule. Because there's too many other things that you have to do in the business in your CEO role that's just too darn important. Then lastly is the hard decisions. This is really difficult, the hard conversation. Being the buffalo, right? I love that motto that we say, when something's hard, just be the buffalo, lean in. And we developed a conversation framework, and I'll share with you right now. The framework goes like this. When you have to have a hard conversation, ask to meet with the person. When you sit down with them, the first thing you want to start with is something positive, right? Don't start the conversation jumping right in there and saying, why are you constantly late? Why aren't you getting your notes done? Why are you talking smack about people? You want to start with something positive, but it has to be genuinely positive. Then you want to ask a question. I recommend open-ended questions. So questions that start with what or when or how. I'd avoid questions like why, why are you late? Because it can feel attacking and the conversation is not going to go anywhere. The other thing you want to do is prepare for questions back. Prepare for, how will they respond? How will they take what this is? The better relationship you have, the better this conversation is going to go. But sometimes, people snap back. So you want to be prepared of what could they say and then how could you respond? So if someone says, well, my schedule's not full because I'm not getting any referrals, then you could say, okay, well, so you're saying that you're not getting any new referrals and the plan of care and everything that you are getting is being realized on the calendar. Is that what you're telling me? Because of course you would have already done some of that work to notice if that was happening. So prepare for any objections, and then you want to repeat back what you heard. This is the most important. People want to feel heard and acknowledged. So by repeating back what you heard is really critical. Then after that, if it's a real heavy conversation, don't try to solve it right then and there. All right? Give yourself permission to say, you know what, appreciate you sharing this with me. If it's okay, let me think about it, and then I'll get back to you. And then the most important thing, book a meeting right there to talk again. So that's just the framework that we use that has worked tremendously well, having some of these difficult conversations. So those are the three areas we're talking about, holding on to decision making, hiring way too early or way too late, and not delegating some of your schedule off on that person, and not leaning in and having really difficult or hard conversations. Those three areas will help you remove yourself from the bottleneck. Your practice will naturally start to grow and start to flow because you're not there suppressing it. So I hope you found some good information here that you can use. Check out my other YouTube videos to help you build and grow your practice and create a life that will set you free.